Hey, are you like me and just noticed that Skyblock hasn't had a meaningful update in 3.5 months? That makes TimeDio's upload schedule look good. Whilst you're waiting for the admins to work on 1.0 and put some stuff out on alpha, there's another brand new Skyblock themed MMORPG you could be playing, and it's owned by the guy who made the Dubstep Hunger Games song 8 years ago. So that's how you know it's good. Skyblock Isles is a literally brand new Minecraft server for 1.17. It's an entirely custom-built MMORPG with unique systems, lots of content, no pay-to-win features, and really frequent updates. The server even has its own resource pack that gives every item its own texture, as long as you use Optifine. This video is gonna be sorta documenting my own adventures on the server and also acting as a guide for people who've never heard of this server before, which if you're watching this video, that's probably you. Your first step to playing on the server is to download Optifine for 1.17, or alternatively, if you use Sodium, the CIT Rezone mod. And this will allow the custom item textures to work, which are kinda essential for this server. Then, you just want to log into the server as if it were any other server, and you'll immediately be greeted with a cutscene and then told to go speak to your grandma. After which you start your epic quest to finish the longest tutorial in video game history. I won't bore you with it in this video, but you should pay attention to the tutorial when you do actually come to play on the server yourself. It runs you through a lot of the basic mechanics that you need to know. After I had finished the tutorial, I was flown into the world of Wharf Molo, where I met my granddad who can apparently teleport. And he taught me how to use the map and then told me to go talk to some guy who can give me some starter gear. And with that, my adventure begins for real this time. I actually really liked the map in this game. It shows you a list of all the areas that you've been before, and you can click them to show you a waypoint that leads towards them, meaning you can never get lost and always find what you need. Anyhow, I made my way over to the adventurers and picked up the melee starter kit, because melee is cool and having to deal with ammo as a mage or archer just really wasn't something I wanted to deal with. Then, the other adventurer told me about adventures, which are a list of tasks I can complete, and I took this to be my first quest. For me, these adventures acted as an extension of the tutorial, and I really started to understand what I was actually doing, and I suggest that any new player does these. My first tasks were to pick 50 apples, bake 50 loaves of bread, kill 50 chickens, net 50 doughs, mill 50 flour, collect 50 logs, catch and cook 50 sardines, farm 50 wheat, and complete a trials task. The first task I decided to do was picking 50 apples, and to do this, I just kinda picked them off a tree. I also got to keep the apples, so that's neat. Next up, I decided to take on wheat, flour, dough, and bread quests, because naturally they are all the same thing. I cut down some wheat with my scythe, milled it all in the mill, and then brought it to the bakery to turn it into dough. Except the baker refused to teach me how to make bread unless I went out to get 5 wheat and flour again. So I did that, came back, and only then I could actually start the bread making process. This took quite a bit of time with turning the flour into dough and then the dough into bread, but after I had finished, all that was left was to farm some more wheat, and that's 4 of my quests done. Next up was the chicken quest, and what better way to do that than killing someone else's chickens? What? It's their fault for securing their chicken coop properly. However, I totally underestimated the intelligence of chickens after I got into a full 1-minute fight with a chicken that had the intelligence to keep knocking me out of their chicken coop. But after that, I killed a bunch more of somebody else's chickens and moved on. Nothing else too interesting happened here. I cut down some trees, caught and cooked a bunch of fish with my net, and then headed over to the trials area to complete a trial, which is like a random quest, to finish my first adventure. As a reward for this, I got a Wharf Molo key and doubled stamina regen whilst in Wharf Molo, which was all neat, as well as an experience bottle for each step I completed, which allows me to level up any skill I want. To use the key, I headed over to the Wharf Molo chest to crack it open, and inside, I got a mithril pickaxe among other things and took this as a sign that I should go mining. I first decided to treat myself to some new gear from the armory, and then checked the map to see where the dwarven mines were and headed over. Getting confident with my new gear, I attacked a robber, huge mistake, and after that near-death experience, I had finally arrived at the Dwarven Mines. I started mining, went inside a random house to smelt my ores, but no, there's a dwarf living in that house, and he won't let me use his things until I deal with his bat infestation. This quest started easy enough, until I had to find 2 of his books. To save you from going through the same trouble that I did, you can find the first book in his attic, which you can reach by climbing these vines on the side of his house. The second book, which I never would have guessed without asking someone, is inside this bookshelf, hidden underneath this table. Anyway, after this, I had to read the book he gave me, and this told me how to make a scarebat, which is like a scarecrow, but for bats. This recipe had a couple bizarre ingredients, most namely a scarecrow head. I had absolutely no idea where I was going to find one of these, but I had a couple guesses in mind. I first tried stealing one from a scarecrow, but that didn't work, and I tried to see if there were any pumpkins around to make one, but there weren't. I headed over to the cow pasture to see if they had one for some reason, but all I could find was a horse with a foot abscess. Ew. My fourth and final idea was the senseless murder of innocent farmers. After trying this for a few minutes, it didn't work, so I gave up and asked the friendly people in chat, who kindly told me I could find it lying around in a hay pile near this farm. Everything else was relatively straightforward, and all I needed now was level 7 artisan, which I could get by making some extra straw at the loom. After grabbing the eucalyptus from the dwarf's house, I could finally craft the scarebat and place it down, allowing me to finally use the dwarf's smeltery and anvil. And after all of this, I still couldn't use the mithril pickaxe because it required level 30. Oh well, I still needed to mine and smith a bunch of stuff to complete my second adventure quest, so I took it upon myself to do that instead. It was also around this time that I realized you could punch the floating materials with green particles around them to collect them, which would have been nice to know earlier, but oops. The rest of the stuff in this adventure was just finishing and killing animals, so I won't bore you with all of that. But after that, my second adventure was finished. After all this, I was getting a little tired of the pre-planned adventures and decided I would make my own adventure. Remember that ill horse I mentioned earlier? That's actually a quest, and if I complete it, I'd be able to keep a mule to ride permanently. So of course I wanted that. After a little bit of dialogue with NPCs, I had to head over to the infirmary, which was full of Swiss flags for some reason, and buy some medicine for the horse, which cost 5,000 coins, but I only had 3,400 coins. So I thought of how to earn some cash, and decided that fishing at the ocean would be a good idea, as I could catch shrimps and eventually oysters, which sell for a lot of money. And also saw Fezzy and 30 Virus whilst I was there, so that was cool. After doing 4 or 5 fishing runs, I had enough money, bought the medicine, and headed back. I was then told to use the medicine and scrape off the abscess with a chisel, which is gross, and after all that, Woodley the racehorse was saved from being made into glue. All that was left to do was to pick up my new mule and do a victory race around the village. Not quite satisfied with the lack of combat I have done so far, I decided to end my adventures with a fight. I had heard rumors that a giant rat was living in the sewers under the village, but I first had to reach combat 15 before I was allowed into the fight. Before any of that though, I wanted to upgrade my gear to steel, and to do that, I'd need a decent bit more money. So it was back to the ocean to fish for shrimps and oysters for cash. I then killed a couple more cows to get combat level 15, but I also needed alchemy level 4, and to get this, I first had to complete a quest at the wizard tower, which was pretty easy to find because all the water around it was pink. This quest led me to have to fry frogs' legs, which required cooking level 17, which meant a lot more shrimp fishing and a lot of shrimp cooking too. Once I had finally given some fried frogs' legs, I took the relic I was given back to the wizard tower, went over to a near altar, made some air runes, got overconfident when fighting a robber, and died. Yeah, it happened again. Dying in this game isn't actually that bad, aside from the fact that it's advertised to everyone in chat. You get 10 minutes to recover your dropped items from the floor, and it tells you exactly where they are, so there's nothing to really worry about if you die. Anyway, I finished up the quest, and now I finally have the requirements I need to investigate this big rat. Before I entered the sewers, I had to set a trap. This required 3 pieces of cheese and some rat poison, which I had to craft. To do so, I had to steal some bubbles from the ocean, steal some ammonia from an innocent family's bathroom, mix in some sugar to make it taste nice, and then buy a bottle to put it all in. With everything I need, I hopped down to the sewers, laid the trap for the giant rat, and then waited. I then saw something that looked suspiciously like a man in a rat costume crawl out of the other side and start eating the cheese. Then, ungrateful rat threw the cheese back at me with a rat, and the boss fight started. It was a pretty easy boss fight, probably because I came over prepared, and after landing the final blow on the giant rat, the sewers were clear, and this old guy can open the agility course he dedicated his entire life to building. I hope you guys enjoyed this kinda different video. It was fun to make and fun to play something different for a change. If you liked it, we might even do more videos on the server or other similar MMORPGs in the future. A huge thanks to Skyblock Isles and Bajan Canadian for reaching out to us about the server. If you've never seen it before, or I've sparked your interest, you should totally check it out. The IP is on screen now, and the team intends to add a lot more content in the future. See ya, have a nice day.